Our scripture for today begins in Psalms. It's from Psalm 67. Let the people praise you, God. Let the nations shout their joy. Be gracious unto us, O God, and bless us, and let the light of your face shine upon us, that your ways may be known upon earth, your saving power among all nations. Let the nations be glad and sing for joy, for you judge the peoples righteously and guide the nations of the earth. The earth has yielded the harvest, and you, O God, have blessed us. Your blessing, O God, be upon us. May all the ends of the earth revere you. Let the peoples praise you, God. Let the nations shout their joy. And our second reading comes from Matthew 15, verses 21 to 28. Then Jesus went thence and departed into the coasts of Tyre and Sidon. And behold, a woman of Canaan came out of the same coasts and cried unto him, saying, Have mercy on me, O Lord, thou Son of David. My daughter is grievously vexed by a devil. But he answered her not a word. And his disciples came and besought him, saying, Send her away, for she crieth after us. But he answered and said, I am not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Then she came and worshipped him, saying, Lord, help me. But he answered and said, It is not meet to take the children's bread and cast it to the dogs. And she said, Truth, Lord. Yet the dogs eat at the crumbs which fall from their master's table. Then Jesus answered and said unto her, O woman, great is thy faith. Be it unto thee even as thou wilt. And her daughter was made whole from that very hour.
So first, let me begin by welcoming the folks of Bashaw United Church. You're not physically here, but I know you're there. And I look forward to being with you next week and to sharing with you as we're sharing with them. I don't know, how many of you have seen a movie called Philadelphia? Anybody seen some? The odd? Okay. It's a bit of an older movie. Came out in 1993. It stars Tom Hanks, who got an Oscar for his performance, and also Denzel Washington. Both are actors that I really love, and came to know Danielle Washington when he played in Shakespeare's Much Ado About Nothing. So it's nice to hear the language of Shakespeare again. So thanks for that reading. Anyway, the gist of the story, I'm not going to tell you the ending, but the gist of the story is a character called Andrew Beckett. Tom Hanks plays him. He's a senior associate lawyer of a big law firm in the city of Philadelphia. Philadelphia's name means city of brotherly love. So he's in here, and he's gay. And he has AIDS. And he doesn't feel that brotherly love in the law firm. So he doesn't say or doesn't name that that's what he has. But it's discovered. And he gets fired. Super great lawyer. A misunderstanding that probably he was framed in, giving cause to be fired. And he needs his own lawyer. And so he looks for lawyers, and he meets one called Joe Miller, very ordinary name, and Denzel Washington plays him. But Denzel Washington plays this Joe Miller, who's an ordinary, mediocre lawyer who does personal injury rather than any complicated other cases, and advertises on TV. You ever seen those ads for law firms that take care of personal injury? So he gets known by people. Oh, you're the TV lawyer. And he's, well, Denzel Washington plays, he's black. And at one point, Tom Hanks, or rather Andrew Beckett, comes to ask him for help. And Joe Miller says, how come you picked me? Am I the first lawyer you've looked at? And Andrew is straightforward. He says, no, you're the ninth. No one's wanted his case. And Joe Miller just kind of backs away from him, doesn't want him to touch him, doesn't want to be in that same close space, makes sure he sits behind the desk. And in the end, he says, you know, I can't take your case. I just can't take your case. And so Andrew has to leave. Joe has rejected Andrew at a time of great need and great anguish. And then we get this story. Jesus, traveling north through Galilee, heading to the neighboring region, southern Syria. He's taking a highway that will lead him to a major city, not Philadelphia, but still a major city called Caesarea Philippi, where there'll be a showdown of some kind. And we'll hear about that next week. That's next week's story. So he's moving into foreign territory. And a woman comes and greets him. And she's from that area. Matthew calls her a Canaanite, and there's all kinds of reasons for that, but that's a digression. She's from that area. And she asks for help. Now, there's a few things about this woman. First, she is a foreigner. She doesn't belong to the same race, same culture, same society, same religion that Jesus and his disciples belong to. She's an outsider. She's a stranger. She's a foreigner. Coming for help. Looking for refuge. She's a woman in a very patriarchal culture. She has few rights, property rights, and her status is dependent on having a husband or a father or a brother who will look after her. And there's no such sign. She's made this trip on her own, which is a rather risky, dangerous thing for a woman to do. And did you hear her name when Keitha read the story? No. She has no name. She is so far on the edge of the story. And there are other women in the New Testament like her that don't get a name. No name. No value. Or maybe she is a no-name brand. Maybe there are a lot of people in her situation and it's not so unusual. Maybe. And then the fourth thing, she has a daughter who is seriously ill, who is possessed by a demon. Okay? Now, today, especially in the mainstream churches, liberal commentators on the scriptures, scholars will point out that probably what they call demonic possession, today we would call mental illness. Maybe. Maybe some kind of unexplained disruptive behavior. Maybe the outcome of abuse, assault, sexual assault, PTSD. Maybe. And that's okay at one level of reading, but I think we miss something. And so I go back to looking at demonic possession. What's demonic? But the opposite of God. And if God is creator, demonic is destructive of relationships and people's lives and hopes. And if God enters us and is our inner guide and companion, the demon, the demonic, is what's within us that misguides us, gets us off track, takes control over us rather than guide us. And if God is love, the demonic is unloving. So here's this young girl, daughter, who is not in control of her life, whose life and actions are destructive and harmful of her life and of her relationship with her mom. Try to put yourself in her mom's position of having to manage this. And then she hears that there's a healer coming. Now, Joe Miller's question to Andrew Beckett, reworked in his context. How many healers have you encountered? Several. Because Jesus is not the only healer in the day. There were healers. There were exorcists. They tended to charge, so Jesus is offering a kind of universal free health care plan, but there was something different about Jesus. So maybe it's an act of desperation. Maybe she's tried other healers, or maybe she's banking everything on this one that she's never met, that she's heard about, who is, to her, a foreigner, another race, another culture, another religion, and she's going to go and get help. On the one hand, what a vulnerable position she is in as a person of no status who has traveled on her own, who has a daughter she can't control, who has to beg for help from somebody, a man, a different person, a great person. How vulnerable she is. And how gutsy to take that trip and to dare to ask. Yeah. We've been in those kind of situations. Have there been people that we've encountered that we look at and they're so different from us? I don't mean that they're richer and more powerful and we kind of envy them and so we get a little annoyed with them. I mean that they're on the margins, they're on the fringes. They're a different race, they're a different ethnic community, they don't speak our language. They have a different set of values, different religion. And we're not sure we want to be in contact with them. We're not sure we want to be near them. We don't quite get what they want. And they're at our door. They're asking for help. They come from Haiti. They come from Syria. They want our help. They come off Maskwacis. They come out of GLBT community. They got Alzheimer's. And we don't know what to do with them. And we want to be kind, we want to be gentle, as Joe Miller is with Andrew Beckett, but I can't help you. Go back to your own people and see what they can do. Maybe there's something like that in our own families, maybe in our neighborhoods. There's somebody that nobody else wants to deal with. Or maybe flip that around. Maybe you're walking in the shoes of that woman. Maybe there's something you have, or something that's happened to you that your best friends or your neighbors or even family just don't understand, don't want to talk about. I live with a cancer. I live with prostate cancer. I'm extremely fortunate. It's non-aggressive. I've lived with it for 3 years. I don't have to worry about it. But when I shared that with my congregation, because I didn't know how serious it might go, interesting conversations that happened. I got two kinds. Never talk about that. Or, how are you? And fortunately, I did get people who said, we're thinking of you, you're in our prayers. By the way, let me tell you about so-and-so or my experience. And I discovered just how many people had cancer. And I've joined a support group, and I've discovered their stories. They're amazing. You know, maybe you've been in something of that kind of situation. Well, Joe is really uncomfortable with Andrew Beckett. But Andrew Beckett insists And Joe rejects him. And when he goes home, he tries to explain to his wife why it's been just such a crappy day because this particular kind of person came to him. And he gets into a rant. It's a homophobic rant. And if you watch the movie, it's really hard to take because it's every possible swear word, vulgar word for out of homophobia, fear of the other gender. But he will persist. If he can't get a lawyer, he will be his own defense. He's not going to quit in his goal to have justice, to have help. This woman, we're told, persists. She cries out for help, and Jesus doesn't listen. Jesus, the great welcomer, compassionate, loving, inclusive person, doesn't listen to her and walks away from her. And the disciples follow after and say, look, this woman is a persistent nuisance. She's on our case time and time again. Tell her to go home. And I can imagine these ex-fishermen, these ex-workers, this ex-bureaucrat from the tax department might be using language that I can't repeat here. Tell her to. And Jesus stops in the class. He addresses her. He speaks to her. And this story, every time I come back to it, really troubles me. Because Jesus' response, go away, lady. You're not my people. You're not the ones I'm responsible for. In the lovely biblical version, I am sent to the lost children of Israel. I got nothing to do with you. You're not one of my people. It's enough of a put down, isn't it? But he adds to it. You can't take bread from children, the children of God. The bread, what? Is that a reference to the manna from heaven? Is that a reference to the bread that he fed the thousands that we heard about last week? Is that literal? You can't take food from children and throw it on little dogs. That's what he says. That's a Greek word. The word for little dogs. What a put down. He has paralleled this woman with dogs. And it's always been, historically and in many cultures, an insult to be called a dog. Those of us who own dogs might want to argue that. How many own dogs? Yeah, there's a few of us, right? You want to argue that. But that is the case. And just think of this one. If we call somebody, a woman, anybody, a female dog, and that's not the two words we would use, what an insult that is. What a harsh insult. And that's what he's done. And on top of that, he's called her a little dog. How condescending he is. Oh, you poor little woman. You female dog. There are those incidents. Our news is full of it lately. We just have to see gatherings around statues that bring pain to hear how those who are black, those who want change, are called all the worst possible names possible. We just have to remember some of our childhood, perhaps, or be open to some of the reality in our own communities, in our own families even, where we have put down the other. And maybe you experience that, and you know the hurt and the shame that comes with that. This is what Jesus does. That's why this troubles me. This is so un-Jesus. But you know, this woman, she's got guts. She's got savvy. She doesn't miss a beat. He says, You can't take bread from children and feed it to the little dogs. And she right back. Even the little dogs get the crumbs that fall from the table. She doesn't miss that. Now there's a little piece in here. Jesus said it's not good to take bread from the children of God, from the family of God. But little dogs under the table, they're not wild dogs in the street. They're pets. They're part of the family. And so she's giving it back to him. You know, even if that's true, I'm not asking for much. Just give me the crumbs. You know, she's not going to stand on pride. Because I'm a member of the family too. I'm a member of your family. I'm a little dog. Now, at that point, I can imagine the crowd around the disciples and the other taking a deep breath. And I'm imagining that they may have been uncomfortable with Jesus' reaction. But, you know, he's the Lord, he's the master, he should be knowing what he's doing. But this woman speaks out of turn. She has no business speaking like that. They're shocked. And I'm imagining she's looking at him eye to eye. And Jesus takes a deep breath. And he praises her. He doesn't get angry. He doesn't get into a diatribe and pile it on and call her names and tell her to go home to where she comes from, that she's got no business here. He doesn't pile that on. And he doesn't lay any guilt trips on her, even in kind ways. Well, you should have taken her here. You should have. You could have. He doesn't lay that on. And he doesn't even go all religious on her. He doesn't say, well, you've got to take me as your Lord and Savior. He doesn't say, you need to be able to come to church with me and have coffee after service with me and meet the friendly people with me. He doesn't say anything like that. He just says, wow. How strong is your faith? How strong is your trust? Trust in me to heal, maybe. Trust in yourself to make this trip, to stand up and speak. Trust that you can do what's right for your daughter as a mother. Wow. And then he says, may what you want be. Let it be as you will, in the King James Version. May what you want to happen, let it happen. There are other healing miracle stories. And Jesus touches them. Jesus tells the demons to go away. Jesus says, you're well, take up your bed and walk. Whatever. There's a direct link. He does the actual curing. Not here. Jesus says, well, let what you want happen. He recognizes her integrity, her rights, her goodness, that she too is a child of God. And healing happens. And I think there are 4 miracles here. One is, as we're told, next sentence, straightway the demon left her and the girl was healed. That's a miracle. I don't know how that happens. Force of his personality, the skill as a curer. I don't know how that happens. There's psychological insights. I don't know. She's healed. But then the relationship between the woman and the daughter is healed, is it not? They can go home to a new life. This terrible, destructive, out of control relationship can be renewed. And the possibilities, all those wonderful possibilities of mother and daughter relationship are possible now. What an awesome miracle that is. What an awesome miracle that could be in our world of broken families of families torn by abuse or by substance abuse or by extreme poverty or absence of food. What an incredible miracle it is when family can be reconstructed and be everything that we want of family. But I suggest to you that that miracle is possible only because of another miracle, Jesus' own transformation. From that angry dismissal, rejection, to her acceptance. The great teacher has learned something. The great healer has had his blindness taken away. The Son of God, the child of God, has welcomed a mother into his life and circle. Jesus is transformed. And I think good thing, because as we'll see next week in the story next week, things are going to get really hot and rough for Jesus. And I think he has a better understanding of himself, a better understanding of who he is. And that will help him. But there's a fourth miracle. Say, I don't know if you've heard this angle on this story. It's not what I grew up with. This humanness of Jesus, that he can lose it so completely. That he can stop and accept he's being challenged and learn from it and change his attitude. Wow. If that can happen to Jesus, then maybe it can happen for me. That maybe imperfect as I am, I can respond to being challenged without being angry and lashing back. I can respond to being asked what I'm doing and learn. I can change my perspective a little. Maybe if Jesus can do that, then I can do that. And I don't know. Maybe you can do that. Maybe you don't need to. Or maybe you can. And so the great miracle of this story also is that those of us who hear the story can be healed, can be given a new lease on life. May God indeed be praised for that. May we follow Jesus with more confident steps because of that. May we rejoice that we are all, as we say in the opening, in Jesus' family. May that be so. That's my prayer.